It's him! Mario!
Woo! Look at that. Look at this bad boy. Look at this chunker. Huh? Look at those wires. Man, okay. This is a monumentus? That's not a word. Day for me. I mean, I prepare for a lot of rambling and regaling history on me you couldn't possibly care about. Because I'm serious, this is a legitimate childhood dream of like 15 years. I'm not joking. First off, if you're thinking of telling me this thing is ugly, your kid is probably uglier than you think they are too. So just stay in your lane, first of all. Oh, but also before I say anything, this screen probably looks way stupider than it did in that first open, because literally, so here's another little shield from the same screen. You see it's all like glossy and nice and everything. That was just really bugging me for like 500 reasons. One, every time I would open this and have to fix something, if there was any little piece of dust particle stuck right here or on the actual screen, and it was right there, it's so hard to see before you put everything together and turn a game on. And then once you do, it just drives you insane. Plus, glossy screens can be really annoying, especially if I were making a video like this and you would just see like the reflection of my phone or whatever all the time, okay? So I did this for you. Plus, I just think the screen looks, I mean, this is ugly and I'll try and make it look prettier, but actually I probably won't. Why am I lying to you? Yeah, so anyways, I'm just gonna turn this bad boy on real quick. It works with one switch. Sometimes the screen doesn't come on for a second. And it's got like a little AV thing on it, which I am absurdly nostalgic for. Something about that just really, really tickles me. So yeah, this, so first of all, I guess, it's got a built-in controller, obviously. This is actually a, this is a Tribute 64 right here, by Retrobit. A controller I like a lot that's very cheap for the Nintendo 64. It's based on a controller called the Hori Mini Pad, which was like an old school thing that it looked very similar to this. They're very expensive now. I'm going to turn you down, Mr. Mario. I'm so sorry. You did very good Koji Kondo with the music, but I'm trying to talk about gaming. So yeah, basically this is one I've had like forever, and this is the controller that I use for playing Nintendo 64 games, and they're like 20 bucks brand new. So I just bought a gray one with the intention of, once I like, you know, epoxied in the parts of the controller and stuff to mount everything, with the intention of painting this. But here's the thing, I've never done that, really. I've tried it a couple times with GameCubes and stuff when I was literally like 15 years ago, when I was like 10 or 11. And paint always feels weird because I don't know how to do it right. And once I realized this all was like working and I was getting it, like it was actually gonna work, I was like, I don't want to accidentally ruin that and make it feel weird, or get shit on my hands all the time or whatever. I don't know. I'd rather try out the painting with something else. But also, this is also another nostalgic thing for me, is like having it look so chopped up and then basically glued in place. At that time that I'm talking about, I'm gonna play this game while I talk about this. Here's a start button right here. It's very stealthy. It's a very cute little start button. But yeah, I guess it's still a thing. I dropped off from really paying attention to it, but I would say around like 2008 to like 2010, probably for me. I was watching a lot of these videos of people like making portable Nintendo 64s and GameCubes and all that stuff. Nintendo, Super Nintendos. I just thought it was basically the coolest thing. Like, I already did all these. What the F, man? Yeah, I'm gonna turn it up a little bit too. It's probably not gonna be that loud. Hopefully you can hear it. Yeah, I used to watch a lot of videos like that, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. I am a big fan of video games, gotta say. And as a kid, like I said, I was 10 years old in 2008, so I was pretty past the Nintendo 64 as far as like growing up with it. We didn't have one. My dad had a Nintendo in the late 80s and 90s, and he still had it by the time I was born. So basically, I grew up with original Nintendo, and I grew up with the GameCube. Those were the two systems that we had, and then I also, obviously, around that time, I got a Wii, and so GameCube and Wii was probably what you would call my gamer prime. what would be like big nostalgia for me, which it totally is. But I remember I always was super into the Nintendo 64 for some reason. I don't actually know why, but I always wanted to play Super Mario 64, and we never like bought it on the Wii Shop channel. Anything like that. I always really wanted to play Ocarina of Time. I think that was because Super Smash Bros. Brawl had those insanely, hilariously stingy, like 4-minute demos of games or something like that, right? I say stingy because they're just like ROMs in an emulator. So they could have chosen like, it's not like it would have taken up more space from the game as far as I'm aware. Like, they didn't remove content from those emulator games. So like, they could have given you like 20 minutes or something. And maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I'm pretty positive like Ocarina of Time was like 9 minutes or something weird like that, or like Mario 64 was like 6 minutes or something. Maybe it was longer, but I don't know. As a kid, I had never figured out how to do anything in Zelda. So anyways, I was always just super interested in these games, and I really wanted to play them. I didn't care about the graphics or anything. I just thought they looked really, really fun. And so that was kind of like, the Nintendo 64 was probably the most like longing I'd ever had for a console for some reason. And I literally only have like 4 games, like still to this day. I need to get some more, but yeah. So I mean, anyways, and that was only exacerbated by seeing these really cool videos of these people making stuff like this. And what I was getting at with the 2008 thing was, at that time, you know, like 3D printers weren't popular. I want to say it was a very young kind of modding scene probably. And a lot of them looked like stuff like this, like cut up pieces of plastic that were glued back together and maybe resanded. So I'll show you the triggers that I have been playing with. And so these are also from the Tribute 64. They look pretty rough, but they're actually not. They're very smooth. You can see here, these are the triggers from the gray one. And I basically just cut out part of the back of the console, cut out what is essentially just the mold for mounting these, even though these are totally hot glued in the back. Then I used some like epoxy or like JB Weld or whatever and globbed that stuff on. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Globbed that stuff on. I sanded it down. It's nice and smooth. It doesn't look like it, but it is. And they used to call this Franken casing, which is kind of awesome to me. So yeah. Anyways, the point is, this is what all those consoles used to look like. This is the battery, by the way. This is what those consoles used to look like. And they don't really anymore. Like, I know that videos are still made, and there's still really impressive stuff being done, which is, a lot of it is done with like 3D printing, getting different companies to make molds from 3D models and things like that. And that is incredibly cool to me in a totally different way. But this is so rugged, you know? It's so like, it's so go-getter, you know? Like, it's just, I loved the idea that like anyone was just chopping up a Nintendo 64 and this controller and just gluing it together. Like, I love that. I still love that. And I also thought it meant that like a lot of these like consoles that people were making were very, very interesting looking. There were a lot that would use the original case, and I kind of thought that would be perfect for me because it's huge and I didn't want to find another case for something else, and everything is kind of designed to fit in here. There's some wires and stuff hanging out, but you can see like the AV out port is still there and it still works, and the original power brick thing is still there. This I guess technically it still works. It would probably blow this thing up if you actually tried to plug it in, which you couldn't because there's a little speaker right here. But that's another topic that I want to get into in a second. But the point is, I'd seen stuff like this done before, and I kind of knew that this is what I wanted to do with it. But yeah, I just loved that. And so this is like the most nostalgic thing in the world for me, and it's all I wanted to do. Like, I used to do this all the time. I wasn't I hope I've been on screen. Jesus Christ, man. But I used to do stuff like this, not very well, and not good with the actual sort of engineering side of things, where if things were wired together properly. I understood the very basics of wiring and all that. Like, I knew how to solder, and I was doing that again to no avail. I was just soldering things together, but I was practicing basically. But what I would really do a lot was like cut up plastic and like open up things and, you know, glue them together and dumb stuff like that. And so whenever I decided to actually do this recently over Christmas, I kind of already had like it was an old skill set. Had to come out of retirement, you know. But I'd already done like the case cutting up stuff before. And I also knew how to solder, so I had a soldering iron. I had a Dremel. I say I had, they are my mother's, but I had access to these things, so there weren't a lot of resources that I had to get for this. Like, this screen is like a super cheapo $18. It's a reverse camera for cars, which is really funny, like an external reverse camera. But yeah, it's super cheap. So like, this didn't cost any money to me. This is my Nintendo 64 I've had forever. I did buy another 64, the cheapest one I could find, just in case something went wrong. But you know, I'll just go ahead and move on to that because I was talking about something related to that a little bit a minute ago. I'm gonna stop playing so I don't get distracted. But like, that's kind of something that was important to me with this, is I didn't want to destroy a Nintendo 64. I didn't want to take a Nintendo 64 out of the world. You know, I was talking about how this, you probably shouldn't use it, and technically you can't. Like, you couldn't fit the original power brick thingy in here because there's a switch right here for the screen, and there is the bit of the speaker, the top corner of the speaker kind of poking through. And obviously these wires are here. They don't bother me. I'm not selling this thing, so I do not care at all. But the idea was I really didn't want to change anything about this. I wanted to make sure that this was just completely reversible in some way. If something broke, or I don't know what the reason would be, I basically wanted it to either be totally reversible. So basically, if I unsoldered everything from the Nintendo 64, it would just be a regular Nintendo 64. I didn't take anything off of it. And to that effect, I also wanted this to function as a regular Nintendo 64. So this is a power switch for that basically just cuts off the power to the input here. But you see, this is like an external battery, which is literally, it's like a heat vest battery. It just happened to be the exact like voltage and everything that I needed, which is great. But I'm connecting with this cable, which is ugly and stupid, and I hate it. But at the same time, this is just a regular DC plug thing, and so I have a 7.5 volt adapter that you just plug into the wall. So this thing can just plug directly into the wall, which is great. And like I said, there is a switch that turns off the screen, but it also turns off the speakers. So, yeah, I'll talk about this. But basically, this just cuts off power directly to this power source. And so I just leave the Nintendo 64 on all the time. This power button is still here and it still functions. There's just no reason to turn it off. And so if I want to, I can plug this into the TV, turn off the screen and the speakers. Jesus Christ! Turn off the screen and speakers, I'm so sorry. And then I got one more switch down here. And this switches between, when it's to the left, this controller is the first player controller right here. And if you switch it to the right, then you can plug in any external controller, like this. So it just functions as a regular Nintendo 64 also. And that was something that was kind of important to me, because like I said, I didn't want to take a regular Nintendo 64 out of the world. You know, they don't make these. I think maybe, I could be wrong about this, has Analog announced like a Nintendo 64 update? You know, there's like the Analog NT and the Super Analog, or whatever they're called, Super NT, whatever they're called, and they're like modern recreations of these systems that aren't like emulator systems like the Retron and stuff like that. So that's awesome. That is like the coolest thing in the world. And I hope they do make one of these, and I hope that it all goes well for them and they somehow can make post-production versions of every single console that exists, because there's something really sad about just knowing that, especially as collecting becomes a more popular thing, consoles just like go away. You know, like people hold on to them. And I mean, you know, collecting is fine if you buy a Nintendo 64 and you have one, and it works and it's cool. But there's a lot of collectors that, you know, will buy 10 of them and things like that. And every time that happens, one is effectively getting removed, and old things are getting more expensive constantly. And something you may be thinking is, why don't you just get one of those much, you know, very cheap, very usable little emulator handhelds that are much smaller and less stupid looking? Well, first of all, it's not stupid looking, so you're wrong about that. It's very handsome, actually. But I don't really like emulators, and that's not some weird moral thing or anything like that. I actually think emulators are amazing. I think the people who make them and work on them are saints. Game preservation is so important, and much like I was talking about, Analog with making their reproduction consoles, emulators are incredibly important to making sure that old video games survive. And emulators are always making progress. They're doing amazing things. They're incredible. But there's kind of two things about them that I don't like. Well, actually, there's three. I guess one being, companies like Nintendo don't just sell their ROMs on an online store. which would be amazing if they did that. And, you know, because emulator, I'm not going to get into it. There's a million videos on it. But the point is, it's hard to get games, and it's technically illegal. So that is one reason that I do not like doing it, and I don't do it. But a big thing for me is the fact that emulation is not the same thing as what the original hardware was doing, right? And first of all, so emulating games is very complicated, obviously, but and maybe it doesn't work like this anymore, but I know for a fact that there was a time where with emulation, it basically, the emulator itself, the piece of software, would get the result like 95% there or something like that, right? But most games individually would have things like glitches and little issues. And so games a lot of times will almost have to be patched specifically into the emulator to make them work as close as possible to the original. And that's great because there's a lot of really famous video games that people love, like Super Mario 64, the Zelda games. If you're talking about Super Nintendo, Super Metroid, all the Mario and Zelda games on the past stuff, Donkey Kong games, you know, Castlevanias, Sonics, all that kind of stuff. But it's a little bit more confusing, or it's a little bit more of an issue, I think, whenever you get to like the weird little games that don't really get talked about as much and probably don't have as much like fan communities behind them, and especially the more kind of niche community of like preservationists who are making emulators and stuff. I'm probably blowing that issue out of proportion, and I'm sure the very smart people who work on emulators and work on this stuff have found ways to you know what, I'm gonna play some Zelda while I talk. I'm getting bored. Turn on. Oh yeah, baby. Listen to this. Oh yeah. That's the ticket right there. Wow, I've been off center this whole video. That's annoying. Anyways, actually, this is a terrible viewing angle. Nothing I do is right. But point being, that's one reason that I'm not 100% sold on emulators as far as 100% correct preservation goes. But at the same time, another thing about it is you even have stuff like, a lot of times emulators will accidentally fix things that probably shouldn't be fixed, right? Like if you look at like a crazy shmup game or something like Alien Soldier on the Genesis or something like that, like these crazy games that have a lot of stuff going on. And so they ultimately end up including things like slow down when there's crazy enemies happening, or like Mega Man games that have a bunch of enemies and stuff like that and the game slows down. It may be tempting to just immediately think, okay, well, it's better if an emulator, which is running on a more powerful PC and is a more efficient an efficient piece of software, it gets rid of that slowdown and stuff. That's just an improvement. But the point is, when those games were being made, for the most part, the developers knew that would slow down in that way. Not saying that they intentionally did that, but it is possible that in some cases the developers did intentionally include slowdown and things like that.
I went on a little bit of a rant here talking about examples of when slowdown was intentional in games, but I realized I didn't even talk about probably the best example in my case. There's literally a very important cutscene in Majora's Mask that happens at the end of the game that originally it's a pretty big cutscene with a lot of stuff happening, and so there's slowdown happening in the game. So that means that whenever that scene was scored in the game and when everything was timed out to play the music to that scene, originally it was timed to the cutscene that includes slowdown. And the slowdown also kind of made that scene feel like even crazier, because you could kind of tell that like the Nintendo 64 was like struggling to like show this crazy event that was happening. So like for example, whenever Nintendo launched their newest emulator on Nintendo Switch Online, originally that song wasn't paced correctly with the cutscene anymore because the ROM was basically just dropped right into an emulator with no patching and no fixing, and so the song just didn't line up anymore. And for like, it's a pretty big moment to, you know, not be the same as the way that, you know, it originally was in the game. So yeah, I think since now they actually have patched in, like I was talking about with the patching and stuff, they patched in the game to intentionally slow down at that part to match the original. So there's a good example of that.
And so that's just a part of the game. Now, there's probably a lot of circumstances where that's not the case, where the developers actually, you know, they actually did go, oh, this is annoying and I hate this. I really wish there wasn't slowdown here. And that might have even been the case for most of the time. But you know, the point is like, it's not the fully original experience, for better and for worse. And so what kind of brought this on was, one, I've always wanted to do this, but it's been something I've kind of taken out of my mind for a long time. But after I made my last video that was not a Game Maker tutorial, that was a video essay on quality of life features and stuff like that. And I talk about a lot of Zelda games just because I thought that would be the easiest example to do. And so I was just really hankering for some Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. And I really like the Ocarina of Time 3DS version, but if you know anything about the Zelda games, you probably know that the 3D version of Majora's Mask is a little contentious for a bunch of different reasons. I actually don't think all the changes are negative in Majora's Mask 3DS. I love the graphics of Ocarina of Time 3DS and Majora's Mask 3DS. Some of the art direction changes are not great in both of the games as far as preserving atmosphere or even just kind of accidentally destroying it, but there's just something about the graphics of those games that I love. And I love them without the anti-aliasing. Like, I love them with the 3D on, so you get these chunky pixels that are really harsh. It makes everything look so like glittery and cool. It kind of reminds me of what Bloodborne looks like, and for some reason I really like that. I don't know, but yeah, I just love those graphics, and I also love the 3D effect. I don't know if that's unpopular, but I really like the 3D of the 3DS. But anyways, I just kind of hate the gameplay changes so much in Majora's Mask 3DS, and I just really wanted to play regular Majora's Mask, and because this is the modern day, I want to play my games while sitting in my bed. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be like, yeah, I'm on the go. I'm gonna put this on the go. Look, man, the Nintendo Switch came out in 2017. I was 19 years old, so I was driving everywhere by myself, and there, no like trips where I'm sitting in the back of the car. All that's over at that time, right? So I didn't give a shit about the Switch being on the go, but I did think it was cool that I could sit in my little bed while watching YouTube videos or something, while playing, games that I'm familiar with already. So to me, that was kind of just what I wanted with this thingy. I just wanted to be able to sit in my bed and or sit on the couch or whatever and watch a television while I was a gamer at the same time. I would hope that I would find a way in the future to incorporate being a gamer into literally every action that I perform. I'm sure many of you are the same. So instead of sleeping with blinders, I tend to use my VR headset, which in one eye plays speedruns, and in the other eye, I play Resident Evil 4 VR. It's a horrible experience, and it's caused massive degradation to my vision. But this is the dedication I have. Oh, I gotta find money. Money. Already picked up this money. Yes, there we go. What was I saying? I've already confused myself. But that was the idea. That was why I wanted this thing. And I just wanted it to be the actual original games. That was my whole point for all of that. I just wanted to have my stupid cartridges on my stupid Nintendo 64 and play the stupid games and have fun in the 30 minutes before I go to sleep. That really, honestly, was genuinely it. But yeah, so, I don't know if that was an interesting talk or not. I don't know if anyone would still be watching, but I also don't care, because this was the most self-indulgent thing I have done in a very long time, was to just take my Christmas vacation time and funds to just make this thing that I didn't need to make. Now I can play Zelda on the go. Right, like I literally have and they're both Zelda themed too. It's my favorite series. Yeah, so that was really it. That was all. Now I want to go back to holding this thing. Oh, I forgot to shield. Okay. He's a horrible person, and I don't want to play anymore. Let's talk about this bad boy, I guess, even more, but more specifically. First of all, here's why everyone is stupid, except me. This is a real Nintendo 64 controller. It looks like this, and it's cool. I like it a lot. It's really weird. And here is that other controller that is, for the most part, just better in a lot of ways. One great thing is the GameCube-style joystick, and you could also say, oh, well, you have access to the D-pad at the same time. First thing I want to clarify is That's not necessarily a positive thing about this. Not that it's bad, but look how this thing is made. I'm probably wrong because some developers are insane, but no one made this thing assuming you would be doing this, right? The whole time. So most games either work with the D-pad in the L button or they work with the analog stick in the Z button. And also something that's kind of weird and neat about this thing is you can hold it like this. I don't know how many games do this. Like I said, I've probably only played like all the way through and like really experienced like maybe like 7 Nintendo 64 games in my life. But you can hold this thing like this, and like this. And like, that wasn't funny. But so, you know, technically this is a better design, but the fact is because this is the way that the controllers were made, this was never necessary for any games, and if it was, they were probably annoying games to play, and they probably shouldn't have decided to have the player do that. I guess you could do this if you're a big boy, but these consoles are for little kids like me, so I got tiny hands. So anyways, that's what this controller is. This is what it looks like and how it do. Now, why is everyone in the world stupid but me? Great question. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. You probably will. Okay, look how these are labeled. So you have LR and you have 2 Z buttons. First of all, you might look at this and go, that makes sense because that's how controllers are made. You know, you get your L and your R and your ZL and your ZR. Bumper, bumper, trigger, trigger, L1, R1, L2, R2. The 2s and the 1s, right? They're even, so that makes sense. And like I explained to you, you know, there's only 3 triggers on the Nintendo 64, L, R, and Z, and it makes sense to have 2 Z buttons because again, you could hold the controller like this. Now I have the Z in my left hand, and you could hold it like this. Now I have the Z in my right hand. So it makes sense to do that. The absolutely stupid thing that is unbelievably not okay, every single, I'm not joking, I don't know if I've seen a single aftermarket Nintendo 64 controller. Most of these that I see, first of all, you'll see that I did not include a D-pad and there's only 2 triggers back here. Essentially what I did was I cut this off because as far as I'm aware, pretty much every Nintendo 64 game actually decided to go with this movement, right? And we know that now. There are other games that use the D-pad and the L button, obviously. Even Zelda, the L button like turns on and off the little mini map or something like that. But we know in hindsight that most 3D games on the Nintendo 64 control with the joystick and the Z button. This is the most common grip that you're gonna see for a Nintendo 64 game. It is unbelievable to me that when people make these aftermarket controllers, they put L and R as equivalents as if this is what you do when you play Zelda or Mario or Donkey Kong or Mario Party, right? Like, you don't do that. You don't do this when you play Paper Mario. You do this. L and R are not the equivalents on this controller. They look like it. And if you think people are too stupid to understand that concept, that Z and R are the equivalent of the triggers, of the proper main triggers, then you'd be like, well, people will see that Z and R are different, but L and R go together. Shut up, I don't care. You're a controller manufacturer. R and Z should not be offset like this. It's like this on the Nintendo Switch, man, and you can't even map this stuff. R and Z. First of all, excuse me, these are infinitely better than these on every single controller and console. That is debatable because these are always digital and sometimes these are analog. But as far as just holding a controller and being comfortable goes, this is 10 bajillion times more comfortable than doing this. And even this is way better than doing this for the whole game. This is annoying. I hate this. That's actually why I built this. Not any other reason. No nostalgia, no fulfilling a childhood dream, no game preservation. That's all stupid and it was a lie. It's because this is dumb. This doesn't make any sense, man. This should be R. Okay? Z, R. Not ZZ, not LR, not ZR, Z, R. Right here. Just like how on this thingy, that's R and that's Z. Okay? LZ, ZR. I'm gonna stop now. Okay, other things about this. Nothing really. I mean, it's self-explanatory, right? Yeah, by the way, I didn't break a single thing while I made this, which I am so happy with. Didn't break a Nintendo 64. So happy about that. It's the one I'm actually happy about because I bought this new, the screen, and I bought this new. So it would just be a waste of money at that point, which would be very sad, and I wouldn't want that to happen. But more than anything, I'm just glad I did not take a Nintendo 64 off of our blue earth Why do people say God's green earth? It's mostly blue. I don't, okay. But anyways, what was I talking about, man? I'm so scatterbrained. I used to dream of being a portableizer YouTuber and making these videos and talking about it. And now that I'm a very different person and I just want to make video games and am a game designer, all I wanted to do was talk about game preservation and other things and the controller layout and not even this thing. Because this thing's self-explanatory, isn't it? It's a screen, it's a console, it's a battery, it's a controller. You know, it's some switches that and wires. That's all it is. Yeah, a couple fans. That was the other thing I was going to say for heating, because I don't want this thing to eventually die or just shut off and fry itself. It's got new heat sinks on it, which are probably better than the original one. But also there's a fan on this side that draws air in this way, and there's a fan on this side that draws air out. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Did I have anything else I want to talk about? I put up some topics because I didn't really just want to talk about this thing, obviously, because I basically didn't talk about it. I talked about other things. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I built it way faster than I thought I would. I would say famous at this point. I say famous like anyone calls me out on it. Everyone's too nice to do that, but I'm just the worst at predicting how long things take to do. I'm going to put in the Ocarina of Time title music. That is going to be good background music for this. Good diegetic background music. Oh, and that'll make it sound more like there is a thematic purpose to this video, because it's this really great, wonderful, somber piano music. Oh man. I don't want it to overpower me, obviously, but hopefully that's audible. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Let's get that centered and not be off-center like I have the whole video. I probably fixed the video to not be so annoying looking, but, you know, I don't care. I don't care! I'm having fun. Like I said, I'm fulfilling a childhood dream. I've done it, and I'm very proud of this thing. You know, I made a joke about having a thematic purpose or whatever, but I really did want to talk about the emulation and game preservation and stuff like that, and just my own experience with it. I'm a video game developer, and I'm so incredibly passionate about that. It is pretty much the most important thing to me ever. I've had many passions, many things I've cared about. I would consider this to have been one of them, and this could have been a very easy life branch for me. But it just didn't end up being that way, you know? Same with music. I love music. It is one of my favorite things in the world to work on. I love composing music. No spoilers. I love composing music. Writing music. I write all the music for my own game, and it's like one of the most important things of my game to me. But as I've worked more on games and been more in love with games as time has gone on, I just love game design. I love making games, and I want to make cool experiences for people. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about one of the things that I would consider to be really formative about my love for video games was this kind of portableizing, modding scene that was like really interesting and really cool, especially like 10, 15 years ago. And yeah, I wanted to play Nintendo 64 games. I wanted to play any kind of video game I could. I was a Nintendo kid, but I always wanted to play Call of Duty with my friends who had Call of Duty. And I totally wasn't one of those kids. I never thought like guns or war was cool or anything like that, and I especially don't now. Speaking of which, you guys see Kratos just like owned Call of Duty at the Game Awards. That was epic sauce, guys. But no, seriously, like I just love video games. I love all of them. I never had a PlayStation 2, but I would go over to my friend's house as much as I possibly could to play Crash and Spyro and all that stuff. Resetting again, baby. No spoilers here. Isn't that crazy that attract mode for games just used to do that? They used to just show scenes from late in the game. What's up with that? This is a good attract mode. I'm sure you've heard of this before. If you're watching a video like this, you've probably watched plenty of videos about this, but attract mode features are kind of a holdover from arcades, when you would want to play something cool on the screen so people would want to walk over and play your game, but it was also doubling so your screen wouldn't get burned in. The image wouldn't get burned in if the attract mode was just playing for hours. That could happen on older TVs. It could also happen on LCDs, which this is. And that Zelda logo is pretty pervasive right in the middle there. Which is actually a reason I added that switch. So the 64 is still on, so it can be plugged into the TV. Just the speakers and screen are off. And that's why, because I ever thought that like if I had this plugged up to the TV and I was just playing Zelda, I didn't want to forget and leave the title screen on, but have this playing like in the little cabinet down there and then come back and have it just a burned image there. But, you know, that ended up, yeah, so that's just a little safety thing, But yeah, I guess that's it. I won't talk more about it. I kind of wanted to talk about Majora's Mask a lot in this video because it's a very important video game to me. And I know I insulted the remake a little bit, but I do actually really like that game, and I have very, very, very important memories with that game, which was another reason that I wanted to have my Majora's Mask cartridge and be able to play it before bed because not to be the millionth person to make a dramatic video like this, and I probably won't make a dramatic video like this, but I would say this game is one of those it saves my life kind of games, you know? The 2015, whenever that the remake came out, it's like a remake remaster, it's halfway, it's interesting, but I was in a pretty bad place in my life. I was a young man. I was 17 and I was 16 while I was waiting for it to come out. And yeah, it was just, I really needed it at that time. And I feel like video games can be like that for a lot of people, you know? I'm not trying to poke fun or anything at people who make videos like that. I actually think they're some of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I just can't watch them because they make me sad. But you know, I think a lot of people have had experiences like that. Maybe it's not a video game. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's something art related. Maybe it's rock climbing. You know, maybe it's something. But I think the point is that obviously video games and things related to video games, they can do that for people. And it happened for me multiple times. But I feel like that was a really important one for me specifically. And that's just another reason I'm passionate about making games. You know, knowing that they have that power to heal people, right? Song of Healing, Zelda. But I do, you know, maybe not heal. Maybe heal is a little presumptuous, but the power to help people in some way or another, or be a friend when you might not have one, you know? So yeah, I'm proud of this thing. I'm really happy about it. It smells like hot glue when I play it for too long because it gets hot. And I love that. I love the smell of hot glue. And I love you. So, have a good day.